Good evening. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting, March 21st, 2016. I'm going to hold off on having the clerk call the roll. I'm going to turn it over to President of the Water Board, Glenn Murray, to go ahead and call to order his meeting as well.
I'd like to call the South Adams County Water and Sanitation meeting to order.
Hey, I want to thank the Board of Directors for being here. Will the clerk please call the roll for both the Water District and the city?
Thank you, Mayor Ford.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bullock.
Here.
Councilman Amador.
Present.
Councilman Teeter. Councilwoman Carson.
Present.
Councilman Diaz. Councilman McEldowney.
Here.
Councilwoman Elliott.
Present.
Councilman Douglas.
Present.
Mr. President of the Board, do you need me to do a roll call, or would you like to acknowledge that your board members are here?
Why don't go ahead and do a roll call if you would.
Okay. It's going to take me just 1 second so I can get my cheat sheet. Thank you.
That we will have it on the record.
Yes, sir. President Murray.
Here.
Secretary Moss. Here. Treasurer Kuchar.
Here.
Director Phillips.
Here.
Director Cordero.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, we have two council members missing this evening, Mr. Teeter and Mr. Diaz. I would ask for a motion to allow an abstention for both. Mr. Bullock?
Motion to allow both to be excused.
Okay. Mr. Amador?
Second.
A motion is second to allow for that excused absence. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now I'd like to ask everybody if they would please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, I would like to turn it over to the manager of the district, Jim Jones, for opening remarks.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. We as the district appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. We both jointly participate in what's called the Water Commission. It's made up of 2 council representatives, 2 board representatives, staff of each city in the district, as well as the attorneys for both entities. And the purpose of that group is to look at water and wastewater matters that jointly affect the community, both the water district and the city, and to identify opportunities to try to do joint studies and improvements to better the overall community as far as water and wastewater. That commission identified this process, the opportunity to go out and look at development fees of both entities, the city and the district, that we charge to our new developers, just to see if we're competitive with our neighboring metropolitan areas, and just to see if there's anything out of whack. So we're pleased to have the opportunity to work with the city to do this study, and we're happy with the effort that's been put in by Raftellus, and we're anxious to see this presentation tonight.
Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. McBroom do his introductions on our side, but then I need to get back into the agenda. We'll take a few more steps before we get to the presentation.
Would you like to go ahead and do that first?
Yes, please.
And then I'll kick off the presentation.
That'd be great. Thank you. All right, first I want to allow the audience an opportunity to introduce themselves. Staff has the microphone handy and can pass that around, please.
Byron Jefferson, South Adams County Water Lieutenant.
Abel Moreno, Adams County.
Kip Scott, South Adams County Water and Sanitation District.
Blair Corning, South Adams County Water and Sanitation.
Susan Carbajal, representative of Commerce City Cultural Council.
Kevin Vincel, Fire Chief, South Adams County Fire.
Dave Beerweather, South Adams County Fire.
Derek Ross, South Adams County Fire.
Olivia Cordero. Amelie Cordero.
Robert Sheasley, City Attorney's Office.
Roger Tinkenberg, Commerce City Manager's Office.
Kathy Blakeman, Human Resources.
Abe Carson, Adams County resident.
Dave McFarland, Columbine Ranch Homeowners.
Michelle Claymore, Commerce City Economic Development Director.
Eric Jorgensen, Raftelis Financial Consultants.
Rick Giardina with Raftelis Financial Consultants.
Chris Kramer, Community Development.
All right, thank you all for being here. First item on our agenda is going to be the citizen communication portion. Please give your name and address when you're called. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comments to the City Council. Just go up to the podium right up there by the City Clerk. We'll start with Dave McFarland.
Mayor Ford, members of the council, I'm sorry I'm not properly attired, Steve. I just got off work. I'd like to see if there can be any improvement in 112th Avenue from the golf course east, at least to Lewistown Street. A little over 2 weeks ago, it was graded on a Wednesday. It was not graded till 10 days later on a Monday. I think it was the worst I have seen in 15 years. It is a true test of a car's ability and any rattles it may have to go over that piece of road. It was graded today. Grader, I'm sorry, I don't think he knows what he's doing. He pulls up a little gravel from the side, sometimes covers the washboards, but seldom does it cover them. And before a week is out, it is terrible. I don't know anything about grading, but it seems to me it's got to be torn up and graded back. I don't know what the time frame is for the council or the city or whomever's in charge of the road to get that improved, but it is a disaster. I would welcome any of you who are on the council to drive up there about Friday of this week and see what it's like. Is there any time schedule that the council has for the improvement of that road?
I'll start off by saying yes. We know Shea Homes, as they develop further that direction, they're going to be required to have to pay their part of the capital infrastructure that goes in there. But I'll also tell you that I think Potomac's in just as bad a shape. When you grade a road, you have to cut the top of the road out to get the washboards out of it, and then you pull clean, loose material back on top. I used to grade the roads for the city back in the early days, I guess. But I would like to see if we can get Brian to get a hold of the Public Works Director, DeAndrea, and see if we can get the grader operator back up there. And, you know, when I was in the street maintenance division, I had to go to a college to learn how to run a motor grader. So the city actually put me through a program to figure that out. And I'm not beating up on our Public Works employees. We got some good guys. But I would agree that for some reason, the washboards just keep getting bigger. And when you fill them with loose soil, they get pounded. It gets pounded back out immediately. And if you don't take the washboards out, it's going to continue to be that problem. But I'll have the city manager talk to our Public Works, and I'll go to the city manager right now and see what he can do to try to get the roads up in that area, at least maintain, especially since there's more traffic with Shea and their development. Right?
I was only going to add that we'll ask for Mr. McFarland's contact information so that the Public Works Director can get in touch with him directly.
Perfect. And I would also say this is probably the #1 reason that we see Mr. Murray at our council meetings, is because of the roads, the dirt roads in that area. But Potomac and 112th both have some problems that need to be addressed. And we need to take care of it while we got some decent weather before the spring rains start hitting, because it'll just get worse.
Well, I know as not a member of the city, I don't throw much weight around, but I would sure appreciate it, and I'm sure 54 members of our community there would also appreciate it very much. Thank you.
I think anybody traveling 112th or Potomac will appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. Next, I'd like to call forward the Fire Chief, Kevin Vinsel. And I want to recognize him for being at Thursday's event. Kevin, just a shout out to Kevin. I missed them when I did the when I was making sure that everybody knew who was there, that was elected officials, what have you. And I missed the chief of the fire department. So I kind of owe him, and I wanted to make it up tonight. But Chief, come on up to the podium.
This would be the best opportunity to come and talk a little bit about where the fire department is today. So I want to start off by, we had to the tax base, we had these flyers sent out, and I don't know if any of you got these in the mail, received these. Some of you didn't, but I've sent them out anyway. We've made a lot of changes in the last 6-7 months since the administration and our fire department has changed. We've added quite a bit of staff to our command structure, and we have Station 4, which is at 86th and Rosemary, is just about finished. I think the doors will open, we hope sometime in May. We will have an open house. We're gonna be in there a little bit for a week to get all the bugs worked out, and then we'll have the open house. And then our administration facility is due to kick off the groundbreaking little ceremony, I believe, in the beginning of May. So we're really excited, really excited. The administration facility will, I'm working with the Historical Society. We're doing a little museum inside that's going to have artifacts and our 1923 LaFrance on display, and we're going to have the records dating all the way back to 1942 up until now. So the Historical Society is working. It's going to be quite a display, almost like I said, a mini museum. As you walk in, the building will be named after our first fire chief, Carl Horblett. So it'll be the South Adams County Fire Department headquarters, Carl Horblett building. And then outside, we will have a memorial with a life-size bronze statue with the two line of duty deaths, which would be the Hubble Watts memorial. So we'll have that out front. But it's looking really good. I believe it's in the last stages, in planning and development. So we should be kicking off the headquarters May 1st, somewhere around there. It's going to be roughly a 10,000 square foot building. We wanted to build it for 50 years down the road, but we already have 90% of it occupied. So it should be pretty good. But since then, I just wanted to give an update on where we're at as a fire department. We ran roughly 8,000 calls in the year 2015. With obviously in the fire field, majority of it is EMS, but we do respond with EMS. Commerce City, South Adams County Fire District, is known as it's a great department. We have a lot of action. If you call that with the firefighters, that's a good thing. To the public, it may not be such a good thing, but there is a lot of action out here. There's a lot of calls, but on the hindsight of that, it's really good that. We've beefed up our staff, and we now have 3 stations staffed 24/7, which is Station 2. I apologize. Station 3, 7, and 8, and we do plan on in the future doing one more firehouse. So for the city's point, we wanted to get information out on our models for ISO and everything else is looking like 4 stations, but we go for an ISO rating at the end of this year. We look like we're going to drop. An ISO rating by a couple points, we're hoping, but it's looking pretty optimistic that we're going to do that too. So the fire department we've really made some great leaps and bounds. We have 2 new fire engines on order. So since the mill levy has passed, which we asked the taxpayers to increase our mill levy due to staffing issues, volunteer isn't like what they used to be. And the younger generation coming up isn't so much as they have pride for the community, but in a different aspect. So we have to embrace that. We have to change our organization to surround that. So we're about half and half now. We have one of the only volunteer organizations left. And we do that because we pull out of that pool to our paid staff as well. But we have other fire departments, kids. We have some chiefs kids in our fire department now through our academy. So it's going really, really well. So, but I wanted to get this information out. I'll leave these brochures and this that we have up. So we printed some brochures just as some information on our department and where we're headed, our calls, the present, our future. One of the main reasons I want to express is we went for our mill levy increase to Commerce City. We wanted to improve our response times, and we have definitely done that. We have a GIS study that's out, and we will have firm numbers. We want to get down to what the national standard is, and we are well on our way to do that. So that's kind of in a nutshell of where our department is at. We have been in works with the city and more projects than we ever have. And it's looking really, really good for South Adams. We have really made a mark in the fire department world with other fire departments around this metro area. We're talked about in a good way just about every day, and Commerce City's right behind that. So in South Adams, they really didn't know, well, where's South Adams Fire? And now all these other departments know exactly, what area we're at and what we're doing. Any questions?
Go ahead, Jason.
Thanks for coming tonight, Chief. I just wanted to thank you and your organization. I think the efforts that went into the community outreach and interaction that led up to the successful mill levy initiative and that have continued since. It wasn't just an effort to get people engaged to pass the initiative. It's been an obvious and ongoing focus, and I think that's to your credit. And I think to the extent that can continue and the partnerships that you've described, it's a success for us all. It was a nice surprise to see those mail pieces show up, or I think we may have gotten them in our packet. I can't remember if it was mail or in our packet, but to be able to see those and know that you were thinking about that proactive communication, just a simple little piece that says, here's where we're at. I think it's a great thing to close the loop with the voter and help them understand. Again, you're delivering against and those things that you asked for us to support and how they're impacting the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gaylor.
Yes, on the agenda this evening, on the consent agenda, there is an IGA, intergovernmental agreement between the city and South Adams, and I want to give credit to the fire district for cooperation and in the negotiation of that agreement. It was very professionally done, and I want to thank the chief for his input and help in that regard. And as I mentioned, the council will be considering that as part of the consent agenda tonight.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Councilwoman Carson.
Chief, thanks for coming. And I do want to talk about the ISO rating. That is fabulous. Your work is really paying off. And I will tell you that the community fully supports and backs this fire department. In the 6 years that I've been on council, that has always been one of the topics that I have always heard about. To your credit, the last year I've heard a lot, but it's all been very positive.
Good.
Everybody's very excited and happy when they see the activity at the firehouse there on 112th, and it's a reassuring thing, I think, to the community. And yes, we do understand the volunteerism, and it's a different day. But no, I just wanted to congratulate you and the department on the good work that you've done, and I did receive those in the mail. That community outreach is fabulous. So just great things that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely, again, even with and I'd like to send the thank yous back to everybody in this room. Without that mill levy, fire departments are not in this business. They're basically, I'm careful with these words, but it's money whole. I mean, a fire engine is $600,000. And nothing's cheap in the fire service, but it's to our best ability to to deliver the proper service and just not buy things and place things here. We have a method to our madness now with very good GIS and data systems on where our calls are at, how we concentrate on how we utilize resources so we're not taking fire trucks across town, so on and so forth. We're really, really putting a lot of effort in basically using our data management and putting it into real life scenarios and utilizing our stations. And you may see some things in the future that may shock, we may, shift around our firehouses where, but our studies are showing that, the stations up north that are staffed are well placed. But, the area right around our Station 2 at 56th and Holly is the busiest area in the entire fire district. So there's some things like that we're looking at, but I appreciate it. And without the city council and city staff and from the city manager all the way down on, the efforts in the administration building being placed right by the city, we're setting a precedence for everywhere around. You rarely ever, I really don't know of any, but you rarely see a fire district headquarters near any city building whatsoever. If it's a municipality, it's different. But so it's making a really good statement, and I think it makes a good statement to the public that, on how close we work together. So I have to appreciate all the hard work and effort. I know it seems like a long time, and this building is going to be fantastic. We are very, very excited. So thank you back to every one of you. And anytime any of you have any concerns from the water department, I mean, they're great to work with as well. For our ISO rating, one of the big deals in ISO rating is water, and they were fantastic at getting our stuff back to us and getting that going, stuff like that, because we're hoping our ISO rating again will drop by a couple points, which is huge for this city. So,
Mr. Douglas.
Yes, I want to tell you thank you as well, and a lot of our citizens don't realize we are not a full-service city. We don't get with the fire department or the water district, but we're working very well for those relationships. So I appreciate you coming down and updating us because it's very important, especially when it comes to insurance for homes and knowing that those are staffed. The rating for insurance for homes has gone down dramatically just because of that and the zone being manned. So, no, I appreciate everything you guys have done.
Absolutely.
See no one else, Chief. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
It's always great when you come and give an update as to where things are. I don't know what's taking you so long on getting this building put up, though, because it's not the city.
Yeah, we May 1st it's starting. We're looking at a finished date somewhere by the end of the year, but it's going to be fantastic. It really is. We are very excited. If you were to go up, if anybody's ever been to our Station 3, we've been in that building since, I believe, 1978. If anybody wants vintage wood paneling, you're more than happy. We'll have an abundance of it. But there's a lot of us up there. We are just crammed up there. So we're just excited as everybody else to get this going. So
that'll be great.
Yeah, we're
looking
excited.
forward to it, Chief.
Me too. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for coming in.
Okay, I'll leave these up front.
Perfect. Now I have several people that have signed up, and they're all South Adams representatives. And my guess is they just signed up as a sign-up sheet because that's kind of how you guys do it. But I wanted to double-check, make sure nobody signed up for public comment that's on the list. Anybody else for public comment in the room? Seeing none, then we'll go ahead and move on into the agenda without me having to call a bunch of other folks up. Well, first of all, I wanted to welcome South Adams and the Board of Directors and staff to the City Council meeting. As the manager of the district, Jim Jones, mentioned a minute ago, we do have a water commission. On that water commission for the city is myself and Mr. McEldowney and Jim Hayes, who will be leaving us, and we're going to have to fill that. I think that's something Brian could probably pick up in his spare time. Huh, Brian? Absolutely. I'm just giving you a hard time. But it has, we've had this in place for many, many years. It's been that opportunity that we get to sit down every other month or so and talk about issues that we deal with between the water district and the city, how to resolve those issues, how to work better together, collaborative. It's been a good organization to have in place. And one of the things that we're talking about tonight is the fact that we came forward and said, hey, we want to make sure that we're competitive in economic development. And what fees do we have that other cities don't impose? And what fees does the water district have And how do other cities work that have water districts like Brighton, that's a water district and the city together? And what are these fees and how do we compare and how competitive are we? So this is the results of some surveys to be able to find out how competitive we are and where our fees may be higher than others, and to be able to question why. Why is that in place? Why is this in place? Why isn't something in place? But I think it'll be good for the council and the board of the water district to be able to see exactly how we rate from a competitive standpoint, and to understand what fees are in place here that may not be in place other places, and what fees may be in place in other places that aren't in place here. So I'm looking forward to the presentation, and I will turn it over to Brian McBroom, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A quick word about logistics. We do have all the microphones turned on, so consider them all hot microphones. There is a switch on them if you wish to turn it off unless you're speaking. Otherwise, please be aware that they're on. The meeting is being broadcast live on Channel 8 and via the city's website. So please be aware the mics are live. You can switch it off should you wish to do that. Just to echo the comments of others, this is a great example of interagency cooperation. It's not a unique example of interagency cooperation. We have a long history of that, and I think our working relationship, certainly at the staff level, I don't think has ever been better, but it's that way because of the leadership provided by the elected officials. We know that that's your expectation, and so we apply effort with Jim and his team every day to make sure that we're providing services back to the community in a coordinated, efficient way. So we're very happy about that and very proud of that. Tonight's presentation is intended as a presentation. There's a lot of information to be shared with you. Staff's had a chance to see the information prior to the meeting, but I think you'll find it extremely informative. I was really impressed with the quality of the study and how it was done. In the case of City Council, staff's intent is to then circle back after tonight, have a fairly in-depth study session with City Council to talk about the information and have an appropriate policy level discussion about changes you may wish to make about how we fund new development in this community. So it's structured as a presentation and plenty of time for Q&A. And so with that, I'm happy to introduce Rick Jardina from Raftellus, who's going to walk through the information with you.
Eric, you want to come on up? Thank you, Brian. Mayor and Mr. President, City Council, and Board, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you tonight. When we were first engaged with this study, I had some trepidation. Being engaged to really serve the needs and interests of two clients. But the fire chief's comments, the other comments around the table, we found firsthand exactly what has been said here in terms of the two organizations right at the staff level and how they have worked together. Our job here was as much compilation as anything, and compilation of information provided to us, starting with both the district and the city and then going to the survey organizations. So having these two units work so well together really made this a professional study, a pleasurable job to execute. And I think we do have some good results for your consideration tonight. I'm going to take some time to give you a little background on the objective of this study, our methodology, and then we do want to go right into the results. As has been said, this study was about looking at the cost of development in Commerce City and trying to, in as comprehensive a fashion as possible, capture all the associated costs. And so when we talk about development, that's really the upfront cost. I'm coming here to build a home, an office building, whatever it might be. And so we wanted to look at that upfront cost. But we also wanted to look at the cost once that construction is finished and it's occupied. What's the ongoing cost? So we looked at a number of communities. We looked at different types of development. This wasn't focused just on a single-family residence, and we'll share some of that information with you in just a minute. But again, it was a very involved process looking at the communities that made up the survey group with the objective to really calculate the cost of development based on these different types of development profile, include all the different fees we could. The city of Commerce City has a number of fees. The district does too. As we looked at these other communities, in some cases the utility was a part of that community, in others it wasn't. There are a variety of different fees that are assessed by a variety of different organizations outside of the utility and outside of the city in any community. So we wanted to try to look at all those. We also wanted to look at water-related development policies. Water in Colorado, no news to anyone in this room, is a very expensive proposition. And that's a significant cost of development. I work around the country, and when I share with utilities and elected officials in other communities the level of the water development fees that we have here, you would be amazed at the reaction I get when I'm talking about a $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 water development fee in this area versus Arizona, versus Florida, versus Oklahoma, where they're talking about fees in the hundreds, not thousands. So as I've said, we wanted to look at water development fees. We wanted to look at recurring costs, the mill levies that the fire chief mentioned. We want to look at those. We want to look at recurring annual water and sewer bills. In order to put some framework around this, it was important to develop what we call profiles or development types. And so listed here on this slide are the 8 different profiles that we looked at. I've mentioned single family. We had a multifamily development, commercial, restaurant, right on down the line. We felt it was important to have a representative variety of development because depending on the fees you're looking at, they can be assessed in different fashions to different types of development. In order to make that useful, we had to then make some assumptions, what we call cost parameters. And those cost parameters are shown on the right-hand side. Some fees are assessed based on the value of the building, the value of the project, the size, lot size, water meter size, and then we had to make some estimates of annual water usage. So we worked very closely with both city and district staff to develop some profiles that were representative. Our next step in the process was really then to take these and start to look at the communities included in the survey that are listed here and to look at their websites, submit surveys and questionnaires to the planning department in these various cities, all trying to solicit information. In this day and age, there's a lot of good information out there on the website, but often you have to peel back the onion and really understand what's behind a certain fee, who pays it and when. And so that involved an awful lot of field work, and I have to pat Eric on the back, countless hours on the phone and on the website trying to get this information. So that was a bit of the process. We list here the 10 communities that were included in our survey. You can see from big to small. So it was a great representation. Some more information on the development profiles. This is an awful lot of detail. It's all contained within the report. But again, working closely with staff from both sides, the district and the city, we wanted to develop profiles that were representative of development that has occurred in Commerce City. And so we looked at these different 8 profiles ranging from the single-family residential down to the industrial, and then on the second page, irrigation only, and 3 others. So again, this gave us what I believe is a good cross-section of the development that has occurred in Commerce City, and in some cases I think we hope will continue to occur. A little sampling of the types of fees that we looked at, ranging from some things that I think you're probably all pretty familiar with, the building permit fee, the use tax on construction, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, a wide range of water and wastewater fees, public work fees, and right on down the line. And here we're really listing the fees that are paid in advance. So this is the cost of development. I come into the counter and I'm putting up a single-family residential unit. What are the fees that I'm going to pay? From having plan review to actual on-site inspections, to going over to the district and having to pay the system development charge there for water and sewer service. Let's now get to some of the numbers and the cost of development. And again, I want to emphasize this is the upfront cost. We're going to also share with you a best estimate of the recurring, but when we talk about the cost of development, that's where we're going to spend some time and some of the comments about being competitive. And being competitive can take on a lot of different forms, and I want to try to address some of that. But a quick look at the results. And what we're showing here is the total upfront cost of development across the 8 profiles. And what we're showing is where Commerce City ranks against the other communities. Single-family residential. Commerce City was the 5th highest. Commercial, the 10th highest. And right on up to the truck development, and this was the truck car wash, if you recall from the earlier sign. So it was interesting to me that for all the different fees that are assessed and charges, to develop here in Commerce City, you were never the most expensive. You were never the least expensive. And a large amount of the development is single-family residential, and you were in the middle of the pack with regard to that. A little higher for some of the more unique types of development, but these can take on a wide variety of total fees when you look at the different types of commercial development, for example, that could happen in the community. Might be a little difficult to see, but we wanted to break down really what makes up that total fee. And so looking here at the single-family residential, the cost to build a single-family detached residence here in Commerce City, the total cost was nearly $41,000 to build that house in Commerce City. The biggest component, without exception, are the water and wastewater fees. They represented nearly 50% of the fees at almost $21,000, over 50% of the fees. And again, my comments earlier about the significant cost of developing water resources and delivering those. The second largest was the use tax, and that was at about $8,100. The use tax here in Commerce City is assessed based on 60% of the valuation, whereas what we see in other communities is 50%. And so that's one area where the city sort of stood out. Of all the survey communities we looked at, Commerce City was the highest at 60%. So that's an opportunity for some consideration, but I'm going to temper that with some of the conclusions in a little bit. But those were the 2 largest components of the fee category. Shown at the very bottom of this stacked bar chart are building fees. This is the building permit and plan review exercise requirement that every development must go through. Those total about $3,500. We have a similar chart for that commercial development, that commercial profile that I illustrated. For this particular commercial profile, the total cost of development was about $330,000. And again, over half of that was for the utility fees, the water and wastewater fees. There were other development fees that represented about $9,000, the green portion of the bar. That's an E-470 fee and the city's water acquisition fee. Then there's a city roadway fee that represents the $36,000 development fee, one-time fee paid for roadway services. That's the yellow or orange part of the block shown here. I have a series of slides now that show how development here in the city compares to the other communities that we looked at. And on many of these, you'll see Denver as the least expensive. And that can be for a variety of reasons, one of which is, and I'm sort of beating the drum here about the cost of utility development. Denver has water resources going back well over a century and had the opportunities to secure those resources decades and decades ago at a very low cost. And unlike other rapidly growing communities who are relatively new on the horizon and having to go out and acquire water resources at the most expensive cost, at the worst time, if you will. So the utility fees are a driver here, and what we're showing in the blue bar for each of these communities is the water and wastewater only fee. All the other fees, be it plan review, building fee, road impact fee, the use tax, all of those other fees are shown in the orange bar. And this just gives you some sort of sense as to the drivers behind these. But again, on this slide for residential, you'll see Commerce City here, we're right in the middle of the pack. Multifamily, very similar. Commercial, higher up on the scale, but you can see the preponderance of the fee has to do with the water and sewer, the cost of providing water and sewer to the development. The industrial category. We move back more towards the middle of the category, and you can see one of your near neighbors, Broomfield, at the low end of the scale. Well, if you look at that for that industrial warehouse, you'll see for Broomfield, there's really nothing even there for the water and sewer fee. It's such a relatively low amount because this particular industrial profile is using very, very little water. And Broomfield assesses its water development fee based on the estimated water use of that new development. And this particular industrial customer is a unique industrial customer if you go back and look at the profiles in that they use very little water. And so that's the driver for Broomfield there. We'll have another category where it's just at the end, at the other end of the extreme. This is for an irrigation-only tap, a city park. Again, we're in the middle. The next profile was a restaurant. And here you can see we're not in the middle, we're not at the high end of the spectrum either. Okay. Manufacturing. And so I know it's slide after slide, but there's a key theme developing here that we're not at the high end, we're not at the low end. We're somewhere in that mid-range in terms of the cost of development here in Commerce City. The truck wash, and this goes back to my earlier comment about Broomfield. You can see instead of being the least expensive like they were for the industrial, Broomfield's at the other end because a truck wash by definition is anticipated to use very large amounts of water. And Broomfield's system development charge, their water impact fee is what's driving that cost. So a couple of observations here. The first, across the different profiles that we looked at, from single family to multifamily right on up to the car wash, the city was what I would consider within this reasonable range of your competitors, your neighbors. You're not out at either end of the extreme. And for me, having done a lot of these kinds of studies, having done a lot of impact fee studies, where at the start of every impact fee study, the first thing I hear is, if you put in place this impact fee, development will go somewhere else. I've yet to see that happen. For most communities, having impact fees creates the financing tool so that you can provide the infrastructure and provide the service so that you can serve new development. So when I look at these results, for me, the costs we're looking at, the cost of development, the upfront, the one-time cost, this is really not a driving factor in a development deciding to locate in Commerce City because you're generally very competitive with everyone else. There are probably a lot of other considerations that development might look at. They might look at, do we have the right roadway infrastructure? And with a roadway impact fee, I would hope we do. They might look at, if I'm deciding to build a home here, for me, probably the biggest consideration is my commute and schools for my kids. Those kinds of things. So I'm just putting those out there as some examples of things that when our fees are comparable to all of our neighbors and our competitors, developers will then start to look at other things. Let me move on to a couple other areas. Development policies. And here the one I wanted to mention is water dedication. And it's not unusual for a utility, a community that has a utility, or in this case the Water and Sand District on its own, to require a water rights dedication as part of development, to require the developer to bring that to the table. And there's an element of that here through the district. And it's a process that's a little more complicated, a little more complex than we see with a lot of the communities that we surveyed and a lot of the other communities that we worked in. I would not call it a detriment to development, and I think the experience with the district has been pretty good. There's probably some opportunities perhaps to simplify that and make it a little less complex. But it really is one of putting the responsibility on the developer to bring those water rights to the table and to look at and try to take advantage of the secondary market that might exist out there with regard to that. Let me shift gears, and everything we've talked about up to this point are the upfront one-time cost of development. Once I'm here, what does it cost me to stay here? What does it cost me to be in Commerce City and served by the Water District? And that's really reflected in two things, mill levies and the monthly water and sewer rates that are paid. And the mill levies, there's a variety of them listed here that are assessed, and some of these are assessed by and through the city. Many of these are not. And what we tried to look at was, for each of the communities that we surveyed, if we could identify a single-family home, a single-family residence, one home in an area of the community that was a growth area. We tried to identify that for each of the survey communities and in Commerce City as well. And what would that home pay in terms of the mill levies each and every year going forward? And so this chart illustrates where Commerce City falls out in terms of that mill levy comparison, and you can see here we are at the high end. And this particular one was driven, as the note shows on the bottom of the slide, by the mill levy for the Buckley Ranch Metro District. And if you were to take that out, we would not be the highest. We would be somewhere down in the Broomfield-Parker range. But this is just an example of the mill levy for one entity driving recurring costs up. And keep in mind, these are the recurring costs. And I won't say they're not at all a consideration in development, but these are the costs that the homeowner pays after they're here. And these are driven in many cases by the cost of development. The next part of the recurring costs that we looked at were the annual water and sewer bills. And so for each of those 8 development profiles, we looked at and made some assumptions about the size of the meter, about the amount of annual water use, about peak summertime use, which is an important factor in many communities based on their rate structure. So here when we looked at the annual water and sewer bills, and again, this is for the 8 different profiles that we looked at. On the left, the single-family residential, and to the right, the truck wash, and what their annual water and sewer bill would be. So the single-family residential, again, just like the upfront cost of development where we were the 5th highest, for the annual water and sewer bill for single-family residential, we are also the 5th highest. Multifamily, 8th highest. The truck wash over on the end, because of our water and sewer rate structure, that was the highest in the group, the most expensive in the group. Tremendous amount of water is being used, and based on the rate structure, that ended up being the highest. And I'll begin to close with some other observations. Again, a slide that we have already shown, the upfront development cost. and where we rank as a community compared to our neighbors and our competitors. I'll come back to the fact that we're not the highest in any one of these categories. And that is an important consideration when you look at all the pieces of your fee structure and consider perhaps changing this, that, or the other thing. Could you be made more competitive? Perhaps yes. And I can't tell you definitively if for the commercial development, instead of being the 10th most expensive, if you were the 8th, how much more development that would give you. Again, I think the other factors that developers look to may play out and may be more significant than a fee change. I commented earlier about the use tax, and so now I want to just run through a few items. The use tax, again, of the communities we looked at, Commerce City is the only one that has a use tax at 60%. Every other community was at 50%. The water acquisition fee. This is one where it's a fee assessed by the city to a new building because the city has to go out and then through the district acquire more water for public facilities. And so this fee is assessed on a structure basis. If I'm building a 100,000 square foot warehouse or bottle processing plant, I'm going to pay the same water acquisition fee to the city that my neighbor Eric would if he's building a single family residence. So there might be an opportunity to re-look at how that's assessed. That a larger building, it may be more appropriate to have them pay more in this instance. The park dedication requirement. The city assesses that to residential development as well as non-residential development. And again, that's a little unusual in terms of what we see in the industry. Typically, a park fee is assessed only to residential development because residences use the parks. It's very unusual for us to see that assessed to non-residential. Again, I'm coming into the community and I'm building a warehouse. Why would I pay a park dedication fee? Am I using the parks would be the question we would ask. So that might be something worth looking at. Mill levies in general we found to be on the high end for the metro districts relative to the comparison communities that we looked at. We think there's also an opportunity for the district and the city to maybe do a little better job of communicating with developers. And we show an example here, or reference an example in Aurora, Brighton, and Castle Rock, where those communities have what we would refer to as sort of a one-stop shop document or website where a developer can really see everything they need to know about developing in those communities. And that might be advantageous, again, in terms of building a better relationship with the development community and putting that information out there at their fingertips. The fee in lieu of water rights dedication I spoke of earlier, this is a fee that the district assesses. And there may be a more straightforward, easier option in terms of looking at this, making that development process less complex, less onerous, while still putting the cost of development, the cost of that water resource where it belongs. There's a dual irrigation system in place here where we're taking raw water and using that to irrigate. When we look at other communities, we typically see a lower fee for a non-potable system, for an irrigation system that is not using treated water. We usually see a lower fee in terms of both the upfront development fee as well as the monthly fee that's paid based on the metered water use, merely because, number one, it's an incentive to get customers to use non-treated water. And in theory, they're using a water of lesser quality. And so to encourage that kind of development, there's usually a lower fee. And one of the benefits for that is if we have customers who are in that position where they can use the non-treated water, that makes more treated water available for customers who don't have that option. So it's an enhancement to our water resources, and that might be something that the district could look at. And then the last bullet here, individual metering of commercial industrial buildings. This is a sort of a mixed bag, and envision a strip shopping center where there might be 6 or 8 individual units there. And the requirement today is that each one of those have to be individually metered. So if I'm the developer now, I'm paying a development fee for each of those, all 8 of those. There are a lot of utilities that have a single meter going to all of those. And so this is one of the considerations in terms of the cost of development, the upfront cost for developers. Also, the requirement to have individual sewer lines for each of those. If in the future there's ever an issue with the quality of the sewer, by having those individual lines, you can put that cost responsibility with the party that's having the issue. If we're required because I'm bringing in a process in my rental space that is producing a lower quality of wastewater, and we have to put in industrial pretreatment, that can be an issue. And so I'm just pointing out some pros and cons of the current policy where we have the strip shopping center individually metered and individual sewer lines. There's a higher cost to the developer for that. Some of the benefit of that is in terms of operational information that the utility has. So this might be another area that the utility could look at and better balance the cost of development with the operational benefits under the existing policies. So with that, Mayor and President, I'd be more than happy to answer questions you might have about anything we've said today. And if there were some things you thought you were going to hear today that you didn't, I'd be happy to try to address those as well.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you. I think this gives us a real view of where we stand with fees. Some of those that I think as a council we need to talk about. Water resource fee going up 10% a year, parks impact fees on commercial, industrial, or non-residential type uses. I think it's a dialogue that this council needs to take up and look at where we can create an opportunity maybe a little more competitive than we are. And as you said, sometimes that doesn't matter whether you're going to get more or less. I will speak for the council saying that our 2 primary goals right now from an economic development standpoint are commercial and restaurants, and they were at the upper end of those levels. And I think we need to do everything we can to make sure our residents understand we're trying to be as competitive as possible to attract those uses that we need and want for our residents. So I think it's great information. It's information that me and the City Council staff can get more in depth in at a study session and discover where we can make some efforts to be more competitive on the things that we want to be more competitive on. And with that, I will turn over to the President of the Water Board, Lynn Murray.
Yes, thank you, Sean. I agree. I think the study was excellent. I was impressed. It was a lot more comprehensive than I thought it was going to be. This is the kind of study that I've wanted for a long time. I know I've made comments to the council in the past that there's a reason that some development's not coming in, and I think that this answers some of those reasons and some adjustments that can be made to enhance some of those issues we've had. I know from the Water District's perspective, some of the things you've mentioned, we've already are looking into and looking at possibly making some of those changes. And overall, I'm impressed with the study that you've done. So that's kind of where I'm at this point.
I have one more thing. I think, the reason that we're doing this is because we're partners in this community. South Adams and Commerce City, as well as the Fire District and the School District, we have multiple entities that most cities don't have. And we have to be partners to help continue to grow our community in the way we want to grow it, to be a benefit to the residents and the businesses that are here. So I think by doing these type of things together, which I am very welcoming to the school district and the fire district as well, that it helps build that relationship to the point of the true partnership that we need to have to create a community that we all want to see thrive. And I want to thank the district and the staff of the district and our staff as well for helping to put this together, because I really believe that if we don't have these type of venues to be together and work progressively together, that we start losing that relationship. And I know that's a fact because I've seen it happen over years. But I think the more we're engaged with each other and the more that we talk to each other and try to work out how we achieve the goals that all the entities need to achieve, the better off we're going to be as a community. So big thank you to South Adams Water for participating in this with us.
Sean, I'd like to add to that too. You've been at this a lot longer than I have, the involvement with the water district in the city. But from my perspective, I've been at it here for quite some time, and the working relationship between all the districts in the city is better today, at least than I have seen since I've been involved with it. So I think that is accolades to staff as well as the elected officials on here that have made that happen. So I agree with you, Sean.
Thanks, Claire. Now we'll go to questions from the board and the council. Mr. McEldowney.
I'll start with echoing comments from both the board president and the mayor. I think, again, the tenor of the relations between all of the stakeholders is better than I've seen them in my tenure in this role. I think the constructive dialogue is the thing that I'm most excited about. And when we sit down and we roll up our sleeves at the Water Commission meetings, and it's truly a collaborative and constructive conversation, that to me is exciting. This fee study, as Mr. Murray said, is something I think many of us have wanted for a long, long time. It puts things in a fact base that we can look at objectively and dispassionately, as opposed to what our gut says or what we suspect, and that puts things in a position that we can now step back, reflect on, and think about what the policy implications are. For those that were in the initial review of this material some weeks ago, we were quite taken aback by a lot of what we saw. I do want to thank Reftelis for incorporating a lot of the feedback that we had during that session. I think it was helpful in being able to lay the story out today. Again, even this being my second time going through it, there's still a lot that I'm processing, and I'm eager to really see staff on both sides be able to take this and run with it. The data behind this report, to me, is incredibly powerful for us to look at those things that we suspect to be impacted by these fees. Is there a true causative relationship that the data helps to illustrate or not? We heard from Reftelis that some of these things may or may not be truly discouraging or encouraging to the extent we think. And so being able to get behind that and figure out what things we can change. I know Sean and I were brainstorming a number of these after the first preview session, and some of these may be fantastic goodwill gestures. The pain that they cause for that user or two that is impacted by the fee, and for what it really does to either the district or the city in terms of adding to the coffers and turning into some meaningful outcome, is probably there's no direct or positive relationship there. So to be able to look at some of these that we could potentially walk away from, I think there's a lot of goodwill there to be able to show our development community that we are looking at how to make things easier. So I'm excited for that next round of conversation, and again, I just want to thank the board for partnering with us on this effort.
Anyone else?
I'd like to thank the partnership with the Water Board and the council and the other partnerships that we do have here as well in the fire district. It's truly amazing to see the collaboration and the communication that we have today. I also want to thank Reftelis. So when I got here, I was encouraged to say, and I was just flabbergasted in how much information we didn't have as far as fees and how we compared to our surrounding jurisdictions and municipalities. So when I viewed the data, it was impressive. So thank you for at least defining the problems and the constraints that we have, because there's numerous different factors in how you can draw a conclusion. But I think when I see the data, it definitely helps me understand where we're at. It also helps our economic development team and the things that they're doing and us as a council to help direct them. So we know that as a council, we're looking for commercial retail developments, we're looking for restaurants, and when I got here, I was wondering and hearing a lot of things that maybe the fees that were here in place were discouraging economic development. So for us, I'd like to take it to move forward with my counterparts and have another discussion on how do we work with our staff to make this more of an attractive community to come develop in, especially we hear all the time, we don't have a sit-down restaurant, we don't have a brew pub, we don't have these kinds of things, and a lot of times I think the communication where we're at is definitely going to help us. So just thank you for this information. It's extremely helpful.
I'm going to go to the board side. Anybody have any conversation or questions? No? All right, Mr. Douglas.
Yes, I just want to echo as well as my colleagues here at the City Council. Looking at the study here and seeing how things are broken down, especially when it comes to metro districts, those are up and down the board. A lot of people don't understand the structure as far as when they get their taxes, how things are broken down, and what's included. And so I appreciate you breaking all that down because there's a lot in here that you can decipher from. And then looking at as far as developmental fees and all, and the fact that we don't control our water and that we are having this relationship. I say killing relationship because going to my second term here in City Council, prior to that, there really wasn't that much discussion with the city and the water. I mean, there's a lot of questions out there people have, especially with their water quality. And I know that South Adams is working on that as well. And but as far as your study here, as far as being competitive with their neighbors, that's the biggest thing. People are always asking why Brighton, why Thornton, why Denver, why Aurora. Are they taking our development and our future, Costco, whatever? But this here is a very clear picture, and we can work with this. These are actual documentations that we can explain things and also work through it too, because we do have companies that want to be here. But I think some of our biggest issues is working relationships and making sure we're all on the same page. We have different entities, different departments that have not worked very well in the past, and I think the collaboration with the water district, with the fire district, because we are not a full service city, and we act like we are. So I think we're heading the right direction. We just had the 1% sales tax that passed 2013, and we have 5 projects in 5 years, and right now we're on track getting those projects done. And but this really helps explain to people that it's not why we have them. They will come, but this is some of the things we have to work through to make sure we get more than what we need. So I appreciate that.
You know, I would go a little bit further to expand on that. I think it's important that everybody understand that through this survey, there are some single-family residential that's going to fluctuate in that orange bar depending on what those metro district fees are. You know, depending on what part of town development takes place in, what fees are assessed. And we've already had issues with commercial development in the past concerned with why are we charging a parks impact fee. That's been a sore subject with some commercial users here in the city. So I think that it'll be great when this council can dive into it at another depth in a study session. And I would like the opportunity to make sure that we come back together with South Adams and talk about what our understandings of it are and what plans we have as a council on how we're going to make some adjustments on the things that we think need to be adjusted. So I would hold any of that critical stuff until we get into a study session, see how we're going to, as a council, put together a plan of action based on this study, find more information out about Metro District fees in all of our little communities throughout our city so that we have a better understanding. And it helps us, like Steve said, be able to report back to our residents as why your tax is higher in this area versus this area, because there are areas in the older part of town we don't have Metro District fees. And there are some extremely high Metro District fees in some of the communities in the northern area. And why are my taxes higher? Why are my taxes lower? We get that debate all the time. But from this, I think is a great starting point to figure out how we're going to be able to adjust our own stuff and work with the district to come up with where we want to be in that chart to be from a competitive angle on the development we want to see. And if there's no further questions or comments, I would again thank the Board of Directors of South Adams and the staff for coming out today and showing our true partnership. You have some more you'd like to throw in there?
I believe that Brian has.
Oh, well, he can wait a second. I'm not done spewing. Huh, Brian?
No, we're all set.
All right. But I know we have a great partnership. I just want to continue to grow that partnership, and I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much.
I was just, from a procedural standpoint, going to suggest President Murray may want to adjourn their meeting, and then perhaps Mayor take a short recess.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. President, go ahead.
Is there any further comments from the board? Hearing none, can I have a motion we adjourn? Ms. makes the motion we adjourn. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Aaron seconds the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The meeting is adjourned.
And on Commerce City side, I'd like to take a short recess. We'll come back in 5 minutes, and we'll be up at the dais. going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. I think we took a little more than 5 minutes. It looks like everybody's ready for us to get the meeting back underway. We'll move into the consent agenda portion of our meeting. The consent agenda includes items that are routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, non-controversial. They are presented to council for a single motion and vote. Any member of council may ask to remove a specific item for further discussion and a separate vote. Tonight there are 7 items listed under the consent agenda. Does anyone on council wish to remove an item off of the consent agenda? Mr. Douglas.
Sorry. Ordinance 2082.
Ordinance 2082 will be removed from the consent agenda and heard directly after the consent agenda. All right, so that takes us down to 6. Will the city attorney please read? I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, the 6 items. Mr. McEldenny.
Move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
All right, Mr. Bullock.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read the titles?
Title of Resolution 2016-27, a resolution amending council policy number CP-5 regarding council expenditures for authorized events and travel. Title of Resolution 2016-29, resolution amending council policy number CP-19 regarding use of discretionary funds by City Council. Title of Resolution 2016-45, resolution amending resolution approving economic development incentive for Peter DeVries. Title of Resolution 2016-49, resolution authorizing letter of support for Playful City USA application. Title of Resolution 2016-50, resolution approving intergovernmental agreement between South Adams County Fire Protection District Number 4 and the City of Commerce City, Colorado, regarding provision of fire protection service. Title of Ordinance Z 706-99-01-02-06-14-6, an ordinance approving the Burlington Northern Catellus PUD Zone Document Amendment Number 5. And that's a consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Titles have been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, 7 in favor, 2 excused absences. Now we'll move into Ordinance 2082. Ordinance 2082 is an ordinance, it's been pulled off the consent agenda. It's an ordinance amending the 2016 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado, by transferring $180,000 from Impact Fees Fund Parks to the CIPP Fund to offset the costs for the Forest Drive property located at 6023 Forest Drive in Commerce City and authorization of the expenditure thereof. Since Mr. Douglas asked to have this pulled, I would refer to him as to whether he wants a brief discussion or to have a brief presentation from staff. Mr. Douglas?
Yes, I was just going to ask about, I know we transfer $180,000 on to the fee. What was the gap to close this as far as the cost? Because I know it was a public record as far as the home, the price.
You're referring to the purchase price of the property? The agreed upon purchase price is the appraised value. It's the same number, $130,000. And then there's $50,000 for demolition that would be required, so that's how we get to the 180.
Okay, so the purchase of the property was this, the appraised value?
Correct.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Is there any other information you need on that, Mr. Douglas?
No. Thank you.
All right, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Bullock.
Move to approve ordinance 2082 on the, for first reading.
Second.
Second reading, I'm sorry.
All right, is there a second, Mr. McEldowney? I have a motion and a second to approve on second reading ordinance 2082. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2016 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by transferring $180,000 from the Impact Fees Fund Parks to the CIPP Fund to offset costs for the Forest Drive property located at 6023 Forest Drive in Commerce City and authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I'm open for a roll call vote. For the record, 2082 is approved, 7 aye, 2 are on vacation or out of town. Excused. Thank you. All right, next item is the public hearing. It's Resolution 2016-24 and Ordinance AN 236-16 and Zoning Ordinance Z 930-16. I'm going to open the public hearing on the annexation and related zoning case and ask staff to come forward and make their presentation.
The first part of this presentation will involve the basis for the annexation, and Mr. Paul Workman will testify with regard to the annexation. So at this time, I'll ask him to raise his hand and be sworn. Do you swear the evidence you're about to give and the cause now in hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you please state for the record your name and your occupation?
Paul Workman, occupation is city planner for the City of Commerce City.
And are you familiar with the petition for annexation that was filed in this particular case?
I am.
Could you tell the council whether or not this petition involves more than one property owner?
No, there's only one property owner.
And that one property owner is the one who signed the petition?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, that being the case, has the City Council adopted a plan for the area proposed to be annexed as required by Colorado statute?
Yes, they have.
And is at least 1/6 of the perimeter of the area proposed to be annexed contiguous with the existing boundaries of the City of Commerce City?
Yes.
Does a community of interest exist between the area proposed to be annexed and the City of Commerce City?
Yes.
Is the area proposed to be annexed urbanized, or is it capable of being urbanized in the immediate future?
Yes.
Is the area proposed to be annexed integrated or capable of being integrated with the City of Commerce City?
Yes, it is.
And I believe you already indicated that the one property owner involved in this annexation is the one that did sign this petition in this case.
That's correct. Regional Transportation District.
Yes. Who is that owner?
The Regional Transportation District,
Okay.
otherwise known as RTD.
Thank you. Have annexation proceedings effectively been commenced for the annexation of this property that's the subject of this proceeding this evening?
No.
That would be by another
By
municipality.
another municipality, that's correct.
Right, and the answer to that is no.
That's correct.
So that makes it eligible for annexation by Commerce City.
Yes.
Would the proposed annexation result in detachment of an area from any school district and attachment of the same to another school district?
No.
Does the annexation petition meet all the requirements of the city and of the state of Colorado?
Yes, it does.
Will the proposed annexation have the effect of extending the boundary of the City of Commerce City more than 3 miles in any direction from any point of its existing boundary?
No, it will not.
Is the entire width of any street or alley within the area proposed to be annexed included within an annexation petition?
Yes, it is.
Have all the requirements then for annexation under the state constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado and the requirements of the city been satisfied with respect to this annexation?
Yes, they have.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I have no further questions with regard to this annexation petition, and recommend then to the City Council that the petition for annexation be granted, subject to any comments by any members of council or audience.
All right, thank you. Mr. Workman, do you have any other presentation for the council?
There is a short presentation for the actual annexation request and the subsequent zoning request.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Before I do get started this evening, I do want to take a moment and just thank RTD for their cooperation and their collaboration. I know that's kind of been a theme for this evening, and it certainly continues with RTD on this particular project. The request this evening for annexation and zoning represent over 3 years of coordination and work that we've done with RTD to get here this evening. So we're not only excited for this evening, but we're also excited for this project to continue to move forward and become an asset for our community. There are two cases this evening. The first is an annexation case, AN-236-16, and a sister zoning case, Z-930-16. They are two separate cases, but there will be one presentation and then subsequently a motion for each. The property for discussion this evening is located at 72nd and Colorado Boulevard. The applicant is RTD, and again, their request is to annex and zone the property. So the property for this evening is the hatched area shown on the image. We've got Colorado Boulevard to the east of the site, 72nd Avenue on the north, 70th Avenue on the south side, and then what was formerly the Union Pacific Railroad, which will be the new corridor for the North Metro Rail Line. City's comprehensive plan calls this area out for a combination of mixed use, which is the hatched pink, as well as the transit station, which is the large T in the center of the image. And this is an aerial of the subject property, again, Colorado Boulevard off to the east, the station area kind of located in the center of the circle here, with 70th Avenue on the south and 72nd on the north. The request is to annex and zone subject property to the city's public zoning designation. This station is part of the larger North Metro Rail Line project that will increase transit options for our residents. The development of this site will include a rail platform, a station plaza, a paved parking lot, a concrete bus loop, driver relief station, as well as bike storage opportunities. The North Metro line itself is roughly 18.5 miles long. The first 13 miles of it are currently funded and under construction. That is from Denver's Union Station up to Eastlake and 124th Avenue. It will be an electric commuter rail, much like those trains that are going out to the airport at this time. In total, there's 8 stations, but 6 are under construction at this time. The service frequency will be during peak hours about every 20 minutes and off-peak hours about every half an hour. And it is anticipated to open in 2018. This is a concept rendering of the station platform itself, and there is a short video that goes with it that shows kind of the 3D perspective of how the station will look. As we go through this moves from south to north on the station along the west side of the platform. This is the concept plan for the station itself. The primary entrance that RTD will construct will be 70th Avenue on the south side. The existing Fernald Trailhead will be relocated just to the south of the RTD parking lot. And the Fernald Trail will then be rerouted underneath the tracks as opposed to over them for increased safety purposes. The bus loop will be on the northern end of the site with the bus bays on the west side, and then the station platform and the rail service. The city also does have an adopted station area master plan. The Planning Commission analysis of this plan as it relates to the request is that the annexation and zoning of this property is really the first step in realizing the unified character as discussed in our station area master plan. Another benefit that the city's going to be taking advantage of as part of this project is the city received a grant from the Denver Regional Council of Governments, or DRCOG, and the city will use those funds to improve 72nd Avenue from the rail to Colorado Boulevard, as well as Colorado Boulevard between 70th Avenue and 72nd Avenue. Those improvements will include things like curb gutter sidewalks, street lights, pavement improvements, much needed upgrades to those rights of way. That project, led by the city, will start construction in 2017 and will open concurrent with the station and the line in 2018. and that access will come to the north end of the station. So there'll be two accesses to the station, one from 70th on the south that RTD is constructing, and one on 72nd Avenue to the north that the city will do as part of these grant funds. Because the Planning Commission does not review the annexation applications, that's a duty for City Council. The Development Review Team did provide some analysis for the recommendation for approval for the annexation, that the annexation does comply with state law. The request is consistent with our comprehensive plan and the stationary master plan. The property is within our municipal services area. The development of the station has been reviewed for compliance with our land development code. The city and the utility providers have indicated that service will be provided to the site and that the annexation will help further integrate future properties into the city. In terms of analysis of the annexation zoning, there are three ways that the city can zone property after it's been annexed. And the LDC requires that only one of these three be met. And the Planning Commission, at their hearing earlier this month, determined that the requested rezoning to our public zoning designation is most compatible with our stationary master plan for the property, as well as our future land use plan, which designates the site for mixed use and transit-oriented uses and a transit station. In terms of public comment, staff has received one inquiry on this request. It was simply for additional information. There was no indication of support or opposition. The DRT recommendation for annexation is that the City Council would vote to approve the annexation request this evening. And the Planning Commission took testimony and recommended on March 1st of this month that the City Council approve the requested zoning to Commerce City's public zoning designation. And that will conclude staff's presentation. However, staff's available to answer any questions you might have, and the applicant's also present and available to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Workman. I would ask if the applicant would like to come forward and provide that additional information.
Mr. Mayor, this is Mr. Jeff Kay from RTD. He's been one of the partners we've worked with on the project for several years now.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, thank you. My name is Jeff Kay. I represent RTD. I'm the Design Integration Manager for our North Metro Line project. Business address 1765 West 121st Avenue, Suite 300, Westminster, Colorado 80234. I would like to first off thank the Planning Commission and City Council for hearing our application for annexation and rezoning this evening. I would like to especially thank the city staff, including Paul and Maria, for supporting us through our project and through the application process. We're extremely excited to open this station in 2018, and we have a groundbreaking ceremony scheduled for March 31st at 1:30 p.m. We hope everybody here can join us for that. And again, I thank you for your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the council have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and speak to this application? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Now I ask for a motion and a motion to approve the resolution 2016-24. Mr. McEldowney.
Do we need to handle Planning Commission?
No, that's not yet.
Then I would move as
There's just a resolution.
outlined, yes. Move to approve resolution 2016-24.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Douglas.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The city attorney, please read the resolution.
This is the resolution regarding the findings of fact for the annexation. So, title reads, Resolution Making Findings of Fact by the City Council, the City of Commerce City, and its conclusion relative to eligibility of annexation to the City of Commerce City of the property located at 3851 East 70th Avenue, Commerce City, Colorado, in AN 236-16, NO 2016-24.
All right, thank you. Now, you did the introduction of the ordinance, too. We're doing the resolution first, correct? We'll vote on the resolution. All right, I have a motion and a second. Title's been read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Now we'll move, I need a motion to introduce ordinance AN 236-16. Mr. Bullock.
So move.
Mr. McEldowney.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for the introduction of ordinance AN 236-16. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance approving and accomplishing the annexation of contiguous unincorporated territory described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, made a part hereof, located at 3851 East 70th Avenue, Commerce City, Colorado.
Thank you. I have a motion, a second. Title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote. For the record, 7 aye, 2 excused absences. The motion has been introduced for, or the introduction of ordinance AN 23616. Now I'm open for a motion to accept the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission on zoning ordinance Z 930-16. Mr. McEldowney.
Move to approve.
Mr. Bullock.
Second.
I have a motion, a second, to accept the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission on the zoning ordinance Z 93016. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now, I'm open for a motion to introduce zoning ordinance Z 930-16. Councilwoman Carson.
Move to introduce ordinance Z-930-16.
Mr. Amber.
First reading.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second for the introduction of zoning ordinance Z 930-16. Mr. Attorney, please read the title.
Title reads, an ordinance rezoning the property described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, made a part hereof, located at 3851 East 70th Avenue, Commerce City, Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the city of Commerce City, Colorado to reflect said rezoning.
Thank you. I have a motion, a second. Title's been read. I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Sorry.
For the record, 7 in favor, 2 excused absences on the introduction of zoning ordinance Z 930-16. I'd like to thank the applicant for coming in and thank the staff for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move into resolutions. We have Resolution 2016-12. Does anyone on council have any questions regarding the resolution? Seeing none. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this resolution? Seeing none. I'm open for a motion to approve the resolution. Mr. McEldowney.
Move to approve resolution 2016-12.
Mr. Bullock.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, resolution establishing the Parks, Recreation, and Golf Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Title's been read. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now we have Resolution 2016-47. However, there's been some changes, and we're not going to be doing the approving of the interim city attorney employment. I'd like to ask Mr. Gaylor to speak on this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, since our last meeting, I've received a communication from Karen Stevens, the Deputy City Attorney for the City of Commerce City, that she will be leaving the employ of the City of Commerce City and moving to a position of Deputy City Attorney for the City of Westminster. And in view of that, we're not moving ahead then with having her continue as an interim city attorney upon my departure. as of April the 5th. Instead, I'm asking the City Council by motion this evening to appoint Robert Sheasley, the interim city attorney, effective April the 5th. And just as a word of reassurance to the council, we're talking about a plan for succession, and I'm confident, and I'll reassure the council of this fact that Robert, even though he's only been with me a year and a half, has learned considerable how to handle the requirements of the city attorney's office. And we have used outside counsel on occasion as needed. And Robert has, I have full confidence that as needed, Robert will be calling upon outside counsel for assistance. But in the meantime, I'm asking the City Council and recommending to the City Council to appoint Robert Sheasley as interim city attorney effective April the 5th, and rescinding the prior appointment of Karen Stevens as interim city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. First, I think we need to rescind. Do we need to undo the appointment of the interim city attorney?
You could do that in one motion, but
Okay. And appoint Robert Sheasley as interim city attorney
that is correct.
as of April 5th. Is
That
there a
is
motion? Mr. McEldowney.
I would move that we rescind the appointment of Karen Stevens as our interim city attorney, and that we instead designate Robert Sheasley to act in that capacity under Resolution 2016-47.
That would be effective April 5th.
Effective April 5th.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just one other minor clarification. Mr. McEldowney made reference to Resolution 2016-47. We'll actually bring back a different resolution with an employment agreement for Mr. Sheasley on April 4th.
I'll restate my motion. I would move that we rescind the appointment of Karen Stevens as the interim city attorney and update that to indicate Robert Sheasley as the interim city attorney, effective April 5th.
Great. Thank you. We'll go with Councilwoman Carson. Huh?
Second?
I need a second. Mr. Amador.
Second.
We're going to have discussion right now. Councilwoman Carson.
Question. Is Ms. Stevens still employed, or is she left?
No, she is still employed. She'll be employed until probably April the 8th.
I guess there's no nice way of saying this. Is there a way that you can just give her a leave of absence and we're done now?
Give her a leave of absence?
Well, a paid leave. Pay up until that point.
Well, she is working until April 8th and helping us in the transition until April 8th, and we really need her services until...
If you believe we need it, I guess.
Pardon me?
This really kind of came out of nowhere. I know all of us are feeling that way. It does make me question how valuable her services will be to us in the next few weeks.
Well, because of the transition, everybody seems to be asking for things before I leave, and we are, frankly, overloaded up until the date of my departure, and I think there will certainly be some of that carryover at least until April 8th, and we're just struggling to get everything done before her departure.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Bob. When was this first noted to you that Karen was seeking employment with Broomfield? Westminster, sorry.
I learned last Thursday or Friday that she had accepted that position.
Okay. And there was no word prior to that you knew that she reached out to the city to say, hey, I'm looking at seeking employment with Westminster?
I believe that she had mentioned to City Manager McBroom that she was, but I was not in the office to have that conversation with her. But in the meantime, she had mentioned it to Mr. McBroom, but perhaps he can answer that better than I.
Ms. Stevens did mention it to me last Wednesday.
Okay. Something like that, just that level of employment we have. It'd been nice for council to have a heads up to know that she was seeking to have employment outside the city, being in the attorney's office. And I know you're saying that we're overloaded until her departure, but what are we going to do after that? He's going to have to seek outside legal counsel in order to go forward, because we won't have her services nor yours, so we will be short-staffed. So I understand colleague Councilwoman Carson's what she is saying. I mean, what's the difference between her leaving now and then after she departs? We're still going to need some help.
Mr. McBroom?
If I might add, I understand the point that's being made. The next couple of weeks do allow an opportunity for a transition or a handoff of key items that Ms. Stevens is working on. So I think that time will be well spent.
All right. I appreciate that.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I do have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Congratulations, Mr. Seasley. We'll be looking forward to spending some time in this room with you over the next upcoming months. All right. Now we're going to move into administrative council business. I do have one item that I wanted to bring up. Not next Monday, but the following, correct? Is the Metro Mayor's Commissioners Youth Awards.
That's actually next Monday.
Next Monday.
March 28th.
Next Monday at it is a scheduled study session. It is beyond me why, and this is the first time in all the years that I've been here, that the commissioners would put this on a Monday.
Right.
However, I'm frustrated by it because all of the other mayors will be at this event representing the youth from their community. And I feel that it's necessary that I be there as well. The frustrating parts of this is that we were going to have a special meeting next Monday. We were going to do the city manager's evaluation. I don't want to do the city manager's evaluation unless we're all there and capable to comment on his evaluation. So I would recommend that we postpone the city manager's evaluation, and I would like to be excused from that study session, and maybe some of the rest of you want to be excused from that study session to be able to attend the Metro Mayor's Youth Awards dinner, and it will be at Brittany Hill, I believe. So I'd like to know from council if you have a preference on what you want to do concerning the conflict. Mr. Bullock.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have already been put down as one of the attendees for next Monday, so I would like to be excused also. It has never been on a Monday. Never. I know it's been on a Wednesday. It's been on every other day of the week, because usually Monday and Tuesday are what days that most councils meet. And so they actually schedule it around not being on a council night. And I know 3 other councils that meet on Monday also that could have been there. Well, I don't know what they're going to do, so they still might be there. But I agree with the mayor that I don't know why. Maybe it's a scheduling thing with Brittany Hill or something, that Monday was the only day they could get, but I'm asking also to be excused for that event.
Does any other members of the council want to be excused to go to this Metro Mayor's Youth Commissioners Award Monday night? No? Then you would, Mr. Douglas?
Yes, I'd like to be excused for that as well.
All right. And I can't speak for Paulo and or Rick, but if Crystal and Jason and JD and Andrew plan to be at the study session, hopefully one of those two will go to the study session. You have a quorum. Mr. McBroom, what is on the agenda for next Monday night? What is on the agenda for next Monday night?
We have 3 items next Monday night. First is a follow-up study session on the new recreation center. If you recall, last week you asked for quite a bit of additional background information for us, an update on the budget, our debt payments, as part of making some final decisions about features inside the new rec center. So we'll be back with that presentation next Monday. Also, the police department will be presenting some background information about the body-worn camera program as part of implementing that program in the police department. That will come back to council in a regular meeting for action. And then also it'll be an opportunity to hear the Quality Community Foundation board's recommended grant awards for the 2016 grant cycle. So Cheryl Carsons will be there on behalf of the foundation board reviewing grant recommendations for this current grant cycle. So those are the 3 items for next week.
All right, so myself, Mr. Bullock, and Mr. Douglas will be attending. Mr. Douglas?
Because of the nature of the what's on the study session, I'm going to have to opt out being at the award ceremony to be here for that. Because I did ask for items to come back, and I like to be present for that.
Well, and I agree. Right now, this council is seeing some very important things for this community. Not having representation by the mayor at the youth awards would be a very negative thing for this community. But it's also a negative thing to not have representation at the study session, being the high impact of the projects that we're involved with now. I was just getting ready to say that any of us that will not be at the study session, I would ask, and it looks like right now, me and Renee, not knowing about Paulo and Rick, and what I would ask is that make sure that me and Renee meet with the city manager and get a full update so that we're on pace with what's going on with the rec center, the grants, and the body cameras. All right? And for that meeting, I will appoint Mr. McEldowney as mayor to run the study session. Are you okay with that, Mr. McEldowney? Okay. So we don't need any motion or anything on any of that, right? Me and Renee are asking to be excused, and I would ask that Brian have staff reach out to Rick and Paulo so that we know who will be where and give us an update as to who will be attending what. And I have full confidence in this council, so I'm not worried about getting the information I need and making sure things are handled the way they need to be handled. Yep.
And just as a point of information, recall that since this is a study session, if for some reason you didn't have a quorum there, it's not necessary to have a quorum. I realize you want as many there as possible. It's
important to me to have a quorum there just because of the volatility of the issues being discussed. All right? Perfect. So now I'm going to ask if there's any other administrative business. Mr. Bullock.
Yes, as a part of the Legislative Subcommittee review of the Metro Mayor's Caucus request for each city to support the hospital provider fee reclassification resolution, based on the city's legislative principles and the Legislative Subcommittee, it is recommending that the City Council endorse this request. So I move to request the mayor advance the City of Commerce City's support for the hospital provider fee classification to the Metro Mayor's Caucus.
Is there a second? Second. A motion is second to support the hospital provider fee, and take that. I will carry that to the Metro Mayor's Caucus next week. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Is there any further administrative council business? Mr. Douglas.
Yes, thank you. There's some graffiti underneath the tunnel of the little tunnel that goes underneath 104th and Landmark Drive. I'm sure the city's not responsible for that, but there's some really crazy things on that wall there. If they could contact them and have that removed, would be great. I did notice the signs put up along Tower Road near 88th, and I appreciate that, saying there's no outlet. It is clear to people traveling that corridor there. If they do seek to take that as part of their route, there is no outlet. And also, if we could get with Adams County on the timeline of their part of construction on 112th, going east from Chambers to Tower, because they do have responsibility as well on 112th. Is that correct?
I think that's technically correct, at least for the north side of 112th across Columbine Ranches. I don't think the county has any timeline to do any improvement of that section of 112th. It's likely only going to happen with the city initiating that as part of the work the developers will be doing on either side and on the south side in that area. I know that Maria D'Andrea has started discussions with not only Shea, but the folks developing on the north side of 112th to try to coordinate schedules for getting their required sections paved. So it's an opportunity to see if we can fill that gap across Columbine Ranches also.
Okay. And I attended the Commerce City Historical Society meeting on Friday, and they seem to be pretty good stewards with the building. Great attendance each time I go to those meetings. And I know there's going to be an increase in the rent this year, $100. And I was going to ask if we could hold that off this year, the $100 increase. And maybe we need a study session or so. I'm not sure what council feels about that. But as far as this year, have the $100 increase and maybe hold it off till next year, if that's a possibility.
Well, I would ask staff, what is the reason for the $100 increase in rent?
As I recall, that's the lease that the City Council negotiated with the Historical Society. It had an increased rent as part of that lease agreement. We can certainly bring the lease document back to City Council if you have an interest in modifying the terms.
I'd at least like to see it, and my concern is if it's a stepped type of lease, number one, I would be all for doing away with the $100 increase. The downside to that is, what do we do next year when they have a $200 increase to get it back on schedule? So if this council desires, we'll take a look at the lease and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. Is that acceptable, Mr. Douglas? Is that
yes.
acceptable to the council?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll put that on an upcoming study session. Is there any other additional administrative council business? Ms. Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually a follow-up to my request, I want to say probably about 2 months ago, and I realize that this is within county boundaries at the Adams County building where they have that set up for free cell phones that they offer, I'll be nice, to people that are pulling in and out of that parking lot. I realize, Brian, we had a conversation not too long ago, but I don't know what the county is doing about this, but every day that I drive by there, it's a hindrance to people that are pulling in and out of the parking lot, and people are walking through the parking lot just to see what this promotion is that they're offering, and I can just anticipate some type of an accident or something because that is a very busy intersection and entrance to that building. And if it's a matter of reaching out to the Adams County Commissioners, because this has been an ongoing problem, I realize the city has done what they can within their limitations, but no one should be able to just set up just a temporary cell phone type store, whatever, storefront, whatever it is. And it's our residents that are using that particular facility. Anyone else in the city would require a license or anything like that. So it's an eyesore, and it's also like I said, it's a detriment of possible a dangerous situation happening. So if there's something that maybe we can do on this end, if it's reaching out to commissioners, or I'm not sure where the county is with this whole situation, but I just felt that I should
Councilwoman
bring it
Elliott,
up.
would you recommend sending a letter to the commissioners from the council, asking them to take a look at it from a safety perspective?
I would be amenable to that, but I wanted to find out what staff is doing.
A good initial step might be get an update. I know Chris Kramer and his staff have been working with county staff to try and manage that problem. I don't know the latest. What we can do is include it in next week's city manager update, but as soon as we have that update, I can forward it to you,
That'd be
Councilwoman
great.
Elliott.
If it gets to that point, we'll send a letter.
Well, it's every day that I pass by that. It's just, there's anywhere from 10 to 20 people at any given time, and cars are driving in and out, and it's just not a good situation.
All right, and I know you live right by there, so you see it every day. Councilman Douglas.
Yes, I had a couple more things here. When you travel south on Highway 2 from 104th, there's those trucking companies on the south side, on the east side of the road, and they seem to be coming in and out and going to cut traffic, and there's a hill right there, and there's been some near hits along there, and they'll just pull out. And I know since we've taken that over and we talked about this last year, could you find out where we're at as far as agreement? If we're just going to be right in, right out, if we're working with them, if we expand that, what that's going to look like, because it's just seemed to get worse. And the other thing is 72nd and Highway 2, there's that the Derby tire right there. People are not, there's no right turn at 72nd and Highway 2, but they're using the tire place to cut through, and near misses right there as well.
Mr. Douglas, your comments are very timely. Both of those locations are the subject of our executive session tonight.
Oh, okay. All right. And the other thing is the timing on the light at 104th and Highway 2. It seems during the day that light timing is long, but when it gets to I'm not sure if it's a time cycle thing later on as it gets to the late hour, 5, 6 o'clock, when you're turning to go south on the intersection, the timing is very short.
So it would seem that the left turn arrow for southbound traffic is too short during the evening, afternoon, evening.
Right.
We can check that.
Okay.
All right, I have one other thing I wanted to bring up. Mayor Hancock had sent me an invite as part of the International Advisory Council that I serve on. I'm the only mayor in the metro area that serves on that council other than him. It's an advisory council to bring economic development from international economic development to Colorado, primarily around the DIA Tech Center type of structure, which is very beneficial to Commerce City. I was asked to be a delegate on a trip to Munich to talk to some of the technical folks on expanding their businesses and bringing them to this area. Given the fact that I have taken on another run for another position, and the timing with everything that's going on with the city, I am not going to come to council and ask for a request for funds to be able to go to Munich as a delegate. It's hard for me to make that decision, not because I want to go to Munich, but because of the potential benefit to Commerce City by making a trip like that and being able to engage with businesses that could come here. I just wanted you to all be aware of it. I'm going to pass on that trip because of the efforts that I'm putting into a campaign this summer and fall. And I intend, whether I'm elected or not, to continue to serve on the International Advisory Council. And I know there will be more opportunities for me to participate in delegation opportunities to other areas to help drive business around the airport. So I wanted you to all be aware of that. It's been a tough decision to make. The economic development folks here at the city told me absolutely you need to go on this trip. The cost to the city would be in the 12 to 15,000 range. And out of my respect for the residents of this community, I don't want to ask for that kind of money when I'm looking at taking on a new position. But I truly intend to continue to serve at whatever elected capacity I'm at on that commission. So I will ask the staff to send a letter back to Denver stating that timing is not right for me to make this trip, and that I would be interested in serving in any other way I can while I stay here for that trip. Given an opportunity for other members of the International Advisory Council to be able to take my seat this particular time. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. With that, is there any more administrative council business? Seeing none. We'll move into reports. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did distribute via email prior to this evening's meeting this week's City Manager update. There's a short update on dust control on 112th. Clearly, given the comments tonight, there's some additional work we need to do on 112th, so we'll take a look at that as well. We do have the monthly capital improvement program update, good useful information about the status of the projects between our more comprehensive quarterly updates, legislative report, correspondence from RTD, the North Metro Rail Line newsletter, and as always, we do include, particularly if council members are trying to plan their schedules or they're trying to make decisions about conflicts on Monday nights, we do include that look ahead to the City Council work schedule. It's a look ahead. It's not a guarantee that those things will be on that night, but it's an indication at this point in time how we're planning agenda items out. So with that, always happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Mr. Attorney.
Just to let the council know that I'm working hard to accomplish all the unfinished projects that I have on my desk, and I am making good progress, and I'm expecting that I will leave my office in good shape upon my departure as of April 5th.
Thanks, Bob. I know it's coming up quicker than we all want it to. In my report, I went to the Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce Celebrating Civic Leaders Luncheon, Rotary, Rotary again, and then several of us went to the Metro Denver EDC Awards, where we were recognized for cooperation with the Airport 1A on DIA efforts that only took about 3 years. But I will tell you, I'm very happy with the results for Commerce City at 27.5%. So the award didn't mean much. It was great that they recognized us, but the fact that Commerce City came out so well in the negotiations, I think, is the big benefit to our residents. Let's see, and I'll just wrap it up with that for this evening. If anybody has anything they'd like to add, now's the time to do it to the reports. Mr. Douglas?
Yes, I want to thank the citizens for allowing me to go to Washington. I went there for the advocacy part and then also stayed for the conference, and I think that really helps me as my role as council by attending those sessions. Knowledge base, and then meet with other community leaders as well throughout the United States, and knowing that I'm there supporting Commerce City, so I appreciate that.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Mr. Bullock.
I also would like to echo Mr. Douglas and thanks the citizens for sending us to Washington, D.C. We had some very productive meetings with highway, railroad, all of our legislative partners, Senator Bennett, Senator Gardner, Representative Perlmutter, Representative DeGette. Basically, if you went out there with a wish list of things you would like to get done, our wish list was pretty good, and we got most of it accomplished. If everything works like it should, this being an election year, don't count on it. A lot of good things should come to Commerce City, and above all, train noise. But it's not just us. There were so many different groups from around the country that were lobbying on this same thing of train noises in their communities, that I think that Congress has finally realized that it isn't just an isolated to one or two communities. This is something that is going on throughout the nation, that train noise can be abated by the railroads, and it's not that hard to do. So we'll expect good things in the future from a lot of different entities.
All right, anyone else? Mr. Amador?
Just for anybody out there watching, the North Metro rail line that is coming to 72nd and Colorado Boulevard, the groundbreaking will be at 1:30 next Thursday, March 31st, and that will be at somewhere in the realm of 72nd and Colorado Boulevard. I'm not exactly sure on details, but I do know the date and time. So thank you.
Well, and watch out for the phone sales guy. Mr. Douglas.
Sorry, I just want to also add that last week, me and Renee Bullock, Mayor Pro Tem, attended the Suncor Boys and Girls Youth of the Year dinner. There were a lot of kids there, and it was a really good time. And I was asking if we could have those 3 students that were recognized come before City Council. They did speak very well of the Suncor Center, and just wanted the council to hear what those youths have to say.
I think that would be great. I know we're also going to be recognizing the Commerce City Metro Mayor's Youth Commissioner Award folks at a dinner at Buffalo Run, but I'm sure Brian can put something together.
Absolutely. Mr. Douglas, wasn't your daughter recognized that evening
Yeah,
as well?
she's recognized. She does her internship there as well. Thank you.
Well done.
Good, congratulations. Any other additions to my report? Seeing none. The next item we have on our agenda is an executive session. I'm open for a motion to enter into the executive session. The motion maker can use the language off of the agenda. Mr. Bullock.
Move to move into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, parentheses 4, parentheses A and E, for the purpose of instructing negotiators concerning property acquisition for Highway 2 improvements.
Okay. Mr. Amador.
Second.
A motion and a second to go into executive session. I don't know what time we'll get out of executive session, but since it's at the end of the meeting, I'll come in and close the meeting when we are done with the executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion is carried, and we are now going into executive session.